So I'd just like to introduce the new novel I've written, which is called In The Mingled Midst. I've written a story about a group of skiers who put themselves into a skiing project, and the story is actually hitting the timeline when they're dealing with the aftermath of what happens. And I set it in the midst of the Alps. There's a good group of volunteers, of guides there to help them to overcome some of the adventures that they discovered during their project time. My friend Lisa has some parts of the book that she finds particularly interesting, and she'll just read them for you now.
Hello. As Gillian said, she wanted me to choose, and it's very difficult to pick out the passage, but I've chosen this one. I think I enjoy it because it shows something that can be built upon or built from. It's entitled Deposits in the Bank. And then she had it, a picture that cleared her head a little. From the bus she caught a glimpse of a river. The snow along the banks was melting and swelling the river as winter was turning to spring. Could it be that the teenage years were like a torrent of spring flood water gushing out from the layer upon layer of accumulated snow? The snow containing all the childhood happenings, but they could not be held in suspension forever. The heat of promised summer releases the sparkle of life that has been laid down in frozen form and converts it to liquid momentum, which increases in velocity and strength, bubbling, gurgling, and mingling with the throngs of other tumbling streams along the way, tributaries banding together to form the mighty rivers of a new generation. This was the natural way of things, and not a loss as Gwen had initially perceived it, but a whole burst of invigorated potential life. Even if the teenager would struggle at times to keep up with the pace of energy, just as they did when they were toddlers slumping motionless on their beds. For those who had already supposedly gone through this process as teenagers, they were the ones whose role was to stand firm along the banks, holding strong, whilst the torrent flowed on to find its own establishment in life.
Okay, another reason for writing the book was perhaps to point people in a direction that might open new avenues for them. The story, of course, is just a story. It's about skiing in the Alps. You don't have to be a skier in order to understand any part of the story. It just uses that as a backdrop in order to speak about people's different characters and how they perhaps change when you become more involved in a more intense situation in life. It reveals the factors within a person that sometimes gives them the motivation for what they do on a pragmatic, ordinary level. And knowing these traits have been around for quite a long time, we have put together a course that makes you consider how people interact together, and it's called Defining Lines Programme. We've put various fun phases together, or activities if you would. Firstly, looking at the Deman family and sort of traits that occur in a person. Then we look at how a person matures and the elements that go into that. And finally, we look at the good characters in a person, 10 traits of calculation that can lead to creativity, clarity of how to speak and who you are, compassion, care, commitment, constancy, capability, courtesy. We've even got one in there that says covet. It should say covet, it says covert at the moment, but so to covet is not a bad thing. It can be a bad thing, but it's not if we mature properly and learn how to use that trait properly.